Theory of demographic transition. Putting it into a simple understanding, it refers to the changes of birth rate and death rate taking place over the years. This analysis speaks about the population changes over the time. It means what is the percentage of birth rate that has changed, whether it has increased or decreased, what is the percentage of death rate that has changed over the time. That means it has increased or decreased. All such analysis give rise to demographic transition topic. Now, why it is essential? It is essential for every government of every country, let it be a developing nation or a developed nation, because it gives a government a confirmation that whether what are the facilities we should provide to the citizens. If less amount of birth rate is taking place, that means population is growing at a low pace, then better facilities can be provided to the citizens of the nation. And if it is going reverse, then the government has to strive hard for providing these services. The word demographic here refers to scientific study of population. Now, when you go for scientific study, it is a study to which nobody can deny, because that study is based on the reality and nobody can turn their face from reality. So demographic transition, it's an important analysis for any country to take place. Now the most important thing, from where did it start? This method of analysis of population is based on interpretation of an American demographer whose name was Warren Thompson, who did his analysis in the year 1929. Now this analysis of population in demographic study divides the population into different stages or phases. Now, what is the basic idea behind dividing the population into basic stages or phases is that if the division is done, then proper analysis can be done. Because if you take the entire 50 to 60 or 80 to 90 years of data, then proper analysis can't be done. So it is must to divide into stages. Stage 1 of demographic transition. Now this analysis of demographic transition, what we are studying here is the analysis of India. It's not of the entire world. Since we are following the prescribed syllabus, this information belongs to India. So let us move forward. In this first stage, both the birth rate and death rates were high. Due to the population remained more or less stable, this stage prevailed in India before 1921. Now, in the first stage, what actually happened here is that the birth rates and death rates both were increasing. Now, why they were increasing? There were reasons behind it. What are the reasons for increasing in birth rate and what are the reasons for increasing in death rates? There are several reasons which is very important for us to study about it. Now, if you see the gist of it, what is the stage 1 speaks about, you can say that birth rate increases as it is rightly pointed here, and death rate also increases. So stage 1 or phase 1 of demographic transition speaks about increasing both the rates, that is birth and death rates. Let us study the reasons for high death rates in stage 1 of demographic transition. The very first reason that stood for high death rate was poor diet. People have no understanding regarding the balanced diet. They used to eat without knowing the nutrition value, because of which their diet remained poor, and most of the people or most of the children were living in malnourished condition. Next was primitive sanitation. People used to go to open areas in the morning as they were not having washrooms, and that contributed to death rates because diseases spread because of that dirt that they actually do it in open areas. Next was absence of effective medical help. Medically, we were not much developed at that time. Technology was actually not being adopted in India because we were developing at that time, more developing at that time. We are developing present too, but the developing level was more at that time. That stood as the reason for it. Next, poor housing condition. Housing condition was like they were never used to have the pakka houses. Very few people used to have pakka house, and remaining the people who were poor, who were actually living in rural areas, they used to live in the conditions where any disease or any problem, if it is being spread in the entire village, they used to get affected. If I give you an example, there was a disease or there was a problematic situation in the village in India at those time, that was plague. The rats used to get spread in the entire house, and people used to empty their houses because of the fear of rats. Because the entire family used to die. The entire people who are actually living in that house used to die. Such was the fear. So poor housing condition was also added to death rate. Another reason for high death rate was low level of standard of living. It is because most of the people in rural areas have agriculture as their chief occupation and the only source of their livelihood. That actually kept their standard of living low because most of the farmers were not rich enough to earn huge amount of money out of the crops what they are actually sowing in their fields. So that did not increase their living standards, and because of which they cannot afford to pay more amount when they are actually affected with any diseases. That's how the death rate increased at that time. And the absence of opportunities for education, people did not take the education in a serious manner. They wanted the result to be in a quick manner, and education was given least priority. Education widens the thinking of an individual, and it removes wrong belief and superstitions from one's mind. But people were not aware of the benefits of education and what are the positives they can actually get it if they gain education, if they make themselves educated. They can know more about the diseases, but that did not happen. Let us study the reasons for high birth rates in stage 1 of demographic transition. The very first reason was lack of education. If you actually want to control the increasing birth rates, it is only education that can do it. Because it is only education that can transform the mind of an individual regarding having less number of children. What are the demerits if they have more number of children? It is only education that can bring about a change within the community or a society. That was missing, because of which high birth rates were actually noticed. Next reason was superstitious. People have a very wrong belief and very blind belief or faith on certain things. If they have a male child only, the family is blessed. The family is considered as a complete family if they have a male baby birth. If they have a daughter, then they used to see that particular woman or that particular house with a sight of degrading intention. So that was the superstitious belief. In expectation of a male baby birth, they kept on increasing the population, because of which it added to high birth rates at that time. Next was social beliefs. That is the extension or continuation of superstitious beliefs what people had at that time. Next was customs about family size. Now, people were very much bothered about and particular about the family size at that time, because it was their belief that having more number of children would give them financial stability, because if they have more amount of children or more number of children, then that could help them in the work what they are actually doing, and good amount of money can be earned with more number of people. That's how their family size expanded, and it actually contributed to high birth rate. Next reason that stood in stage 1 for high birth rate was early marriages. People at that time, or the parents of a family, especially a girl child, used to think that marrying a girl is a big responsibility. Now, as soon as a girl is getting married, the parents get relieved. And thinking this, they used to go for early marriages. And early marriages has disadvantages too that actually contributed to high birth rate. Early marriages increased the number of births in a family that actually contributed to the population of the country. If you see scientifically, if you see this the study of gynecologist, it says that the younger the age, the more better condition of fertility it will be in a girl. So if a girl is getting married early, then the maximum opportunity of having more number of children exist, and that's how it actually added to the high birth rates. And the last reason was people being indifferent to the family planning. People were actually considering family planning as a not necessary kind of thing, because they were not knowing what are the demerits of having more number of children, which they have slowly realized as the time passed. Now, noting point in stage 1, that is, we have studied that both birth rate and death rates have increased in this stage, but that did not actually contribute to the population, because when one side birth rate was increasing, it was on the other side the death rate was also increasing. So that was becoming a kind of balanced situation. So let's take an example. If 10 people were taking birth, or 10 infants were taking birth, then on the other side, the 10 people were dying too. So that actually did not contribute to the population much, and the actual growth rate of population was not high in stage 1 of demographic transition in India, because high birth rate is balanced by high death rate. This should be kept in mind when we study this stage 1. Stage 2 of demographic transition has a vital importance in the demographic study of India. It is this stage that actually added lot of population in India, because in this stage the birth rate was increasing at an alarming rate and death rate was decreasing. Now, why birth rate was actually increasing at alarming rate? There were reasons of it, like we had in the stage 1. And what are the reasons that actually reduce the death rates in India during the stage 2? We also had reasons for that. So let us study why birth rate was increasing in stage 2 and what made the death rate to decline in this stage. Reasons for low death rate. The very first reason that stood for low death rate was improvement in living standard of people. People made the life standard because the source of their income was not only agriculture. It was apart from agriculture, they found job in private sector too, which actually give them a lot of scope to improve their standard of living, and because of which they could afford for the diseases, or if they are falling ill, they could actually have good amount of money in their hand to treat themselves. That's how they actually decrease the death rate with their living standards improvement. Next was the level of education. Education expanded and made the people aware of the diseases, and people were because of the spread of education, the doctors could make the people aware that what are the precautions one should actually take if they are actually affected with or if they are going to affect with any diseases, what are the symptoms if they are actually affected with any disease. So all that was actually being observed or actually being started because of the level of education expanded at that time. And apart from that, there was medical and health facilities increased. That is actually the extension of the level of education only, because it was education that actually increased the medical and health facilities at that time in India. The next was improvement in diet due to rise in income levels. As the income of the people increased, so they actually started consuming the balanced diet in which proper amount of nutritions can be found. So people started consuming a diet which could give them all the vitamins, all the nutrients to the body, because of which the death rate decreased, because all the essential things that actually a body requires, they used to get it with a balanced diet, and they used to fall ill very rarely. These were the actual reasons that contributed to low death rate in stage 2 of demographic transition. Let us study what were the reasons for high birth rate in stage 2. Due to the existence of agrarian society with no mass education, because in the agrarian society we hardly find anybody educated, attitude of the people did not change towards the size of the family. As we have already discussed, farmers used to think in such a way that if they have more number of children, then that could help them in agriculture fields. More number of hands can give them more amount of income. Keeping this in mind, they actually continued to form a large family that actually contributed to high birth rate. And on top of that, they were not having knowledge and they were not educated. They were not actually giving much importance to family planning at that time. That actually added to a lot of population in the country at that time. This kept the birth rate high. The high birth rate and rapidly falling death rate contributed to high growth rate of population. Now, because of this, as the people were actually increasing the birth rate by giving or having more number of children in rural areas, especially because there was no other opportunity for them rather than increasing the family size according to them if they actually want to increase their income. But if they have more number of children, are they going to feed them properly? Are they going to provide them all the facilities to the children if they have more number of? They were not aware of that. If a family is having 10 to 12 children, then do you think a person with a very meager amount of salary can provide all the facilities to them? Can all the demands of the children or all the people in the house be fulfilled? That's not agreed here. That's not the thing to be observed here, because that was missing at that time. Point to be noted in stage 2 of demographic transition analysis is that in this stage, population increased at an alarming rate. We have already studied that population was very high compared to the death rate in this stage. Now, according to the economist, they stated this stage with the name as population explosion, because compared to the death that were actually taking place in this stage, it was birth rate that was actually excelling. So economists have stated this stage as population explosion state. Now, if you understand the meaning explosion, it means how a bomb explodes. जब बॉम्ब फूटता है तो किस तरह से एक्सप्लोजन होता है, उसी तरीके से पॉपुलेशन भी एक्सप्लोड हुई थी. We faced this situation in 1951 to 1991 period. Stage 3 of demographic transition. In this stage, the economic development changed the character of the economy from agrarian to industrialized one. That means apart from agriculture, people also started finding employment or started getting the jobs in industries too. Industries were open with the intention not only to develop the economy, but the main reason behind that was to provide employment to the people. So when these industries were open, what advantage they actually had was people, instead of sitting idle at home, they started coming and working in industries that actually separated male and female from having together. That's how the population got curbed and the birth rate actually started falling. Due to this, birth rate and death rate both reduced. And already we have studied in stage 2 that the birth rate was increasing, that has been decreased due to the above reason stated, and death rate was actually decreasing in stage 2, and that was followed here in stage 3. So if you see the gist of this stage, you can say that birth rate and death rate both decreased in this stage 3. Reasons of low birth rate in stage 3: industrialization increased urbanization, and people started thinking that having more children is usually more of a burden and less of an asset in urban areas than in rural areas. Now, it is education that transformed the thinking of the people in urban areas. When the urbanization was actually started in India, especially in urban areas, what happened here is that the opening of industries gave opportunities for the people to go and work there. When actually they started working there, they realized that what with what hard work they actually earn the income at the end of the month. So they slowly started realizing, if they have more number of children, how difficult it is to survive in urban areas, because the cost of living of urban areas will be high compared to rural areas. So that's how the population actually started decreasing in urban areas rather than rural areas. Industrialization helped people to recognize the merits of small family, and people also started knowing what are the advantages of having a small family. If a family is small in size, then all the facilities can be provided to the children. Their education requirement, their clothing requirement, their etc., what are the requirements they actually demanded for, can be fulfilled with the industrialization expansion. Education helped the people to think in the right way. It is only education that actually provided employment to the people, changed the mind of the people, and actually decreased the birth rate in this stage. Characteristics of stage 3. In one look, we can understand that in this stage, birth rate decrease because education changed the mind of the people, that actually decreased the birth rate. Death rate was also decreased because people's standard of living increased, the source of income and livelihood were many, because of which the death rate decreased, because people can afford to the diseases, and if they are falling ill, they can pay for the expenses of the hospitals and of the clinics and of doctors. That's how they actually decrease the death rates in this stage. Then small family size, people due to industrialization have realized the advantages of having small family, and that's how it is being observed. And the last thing was low growth rate of population. With small family size, the rate of growth of population was reduced, and even then we stand second in terms of population. First is China, but we stand next to China in terms of population. Still, a lot of work has to be done in order to decrease the population. Here are the outcomes of all the three stages of demographic transition in India. Stage 1, birth rate increased and death rate also increased. Stage 2, birth rate increased and death rate decreased. And stage 3, birth rate decreased and death rate also decreased. That's it. We'll meet in the next video with yet another concept. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.